Have you ever considered that the government once commissioned a serious, rigorous military report, not a fringe pamphlet, not a conspiracy blog post, that concluded your mind can literally reach beyond the boundaries of time and space? Not as a metaphor, as a documented, testable, classified conclusion. Because that document exists. It's called the Analysis of the Gateway Process. A United States Army lieutenant colonel wrote it. The CIA classified it. And for 2 decades, it sat buried where nobody could find it. When it was finally declassified in 2003, there were no headlines. No press conferences. It was quietly dropped into a public archive like someone slipping a note under a door and walking away fast. And what's inside it should have changed everything we think we know about consciousness, reality, and the mind's actual relationship to the physical world. That's what this video is about. We're going to go deep. The science, the framework, the implications for your actual life. Pay close attention. My name is Daniel Moreno, and I want to start where the gateway process itself starts, with the brain. Not with mysticism, not with philosophy, with actual neuroscience. Here's something most people don't know. Your brain is running as 2 semi-independent systems right now. The left hemisphere, logic, language, linear analysis. The right hemisphere, creativity, intuition, emotional processing. And most of the time, these 2 sides are doing their own thing. Loosely coordinated, but not truly unified. It's like having 2 musicians in the same room who are both talented, but never quite playing the same song. Now, what happens when they do synchronize? When the left and right hemispheres begin operating in coherent harmony. According to the Gateway Process document, that's when the brain stops being a receiver and starts being something else entirely. Something far more powerful. The technique used to get there is called hemispheric synchronization. Hemi-Sync for short. And here's how it actually works, right? You put on headphones. In your left ear, you receive a tone at 1 frequency, say 200 hertz. In your right ear, a slightly different frequency, say 210 hertz. Your brain perceives the difference between those 2 tones and generates a 3rd frequency internally. In this case, 10 hertz. That internally generated frequency is a binaural beat, and it acts like a pacemaker for your brain waves, nudging them into specific states. Now, scientists have mapped out what those states actually look like. Beta waves, 13 to 30 hertz. That's your alert, problem-solving, anxious, everyday thinking mind. Alpha waves, 8 to 12 hertz. Relaxed, calm, lightly meditative. Theta waves, 4 to 7 hertz. Deep relaxation, creativity, the edge of sleep, the place where genuine insight seems to live. Delta waves, below 4 hertz, deep sleep, subconscious access. The gateway process specifically targets theta and delta because at those frequencies, the document claims, the brain becomes receptive to experiences that simply aren't available in ordinary waking consciousness, out-of-body states, intuitive downloads, perception of events at a distance. And look, I know how that sounds. I spent a good chunk of time when I first encountered this material being deeply skeptical. I actually went down a long rabbit hole trying to find the research on binaural beats specifically, and what surprised me, genuinely surprised me, was how solid it is. Studies published in peer-reviewed journals have confirmed that binaural beats influence brainwave activity, enhance relaxation, improve memory consolidation, reduce stress. This isn't fringe stuff. This is documented, repeatable neuroscience. But the gateway process takes it 1 step further. It argues that Hemi-Sync isn't just a relaxation tool. It's a precision instrument for aligning your mental state with something bigger. And that brings in the 2nd pillar of the whole framework, focused intention. The document makes a claim that stopped me cold when I first read it. It basically states that thought energy, when coherently organized, can interact with the universal hologram to achieve a desired outcome. So that is a mouthful. Let me break it down. Your thoughts aren't just internal chatter. They're energy. And when that energy is scattered, when you're simultaneously worrying about tomorrow, replaying yesterday, and half thinking about a goal, the signal is weak, diffused, like trying to light something with sunlight through your bare hand. But when your brain is synchronized and your intention is focused, that same mental energy becomes concentrated, like sunlight through a magnifying glass. Suddenly, it can actually ignite something. This is the operating premise of the gateway process. Not belief, not hope, coherent, directed, neurologically synchronized intention as a force that interacts with reality itself. And that leads directly into the question the document is really asking underneath all of this. What is reality, actually? Okay, so here's where things get genuinely strange. And I want to be honest with you. This section of the Gateway document is the part I personally think is the most underrated and least understood piece of the whole thing. Most people get distracted by the out-of-body stuff and completely miss what the document is actually arguing about the structure of reality itself. So let's go there. The Gateway Process document puts forward the idea, backed by physics, not just philosophy, that the universe is holographic in nature. Now, before your brain does what brains do and files that under probably metaphorical, let me give you the actual science underneath it. A hologram, in the physical sense, is a three-dimensional image encoded by light. What makes it extraordinary is this. If you take a holographic plate and smash it into pieces, each individual fragment still contains the entire image. Not a piece of it, the whole thing, just lower resolution. The information of the whole is stored in every part. Physicists Leonard Susskind and Gerard 't Hooft developed something called the holographic principle, which essentially proposes that all the information in a three-dimensional space can be encoded on the two-dimensional boundary surrounding it. Think about that. The three-dimensional reality you're sitting inside right now, according to this principle, is a projection from a flatter, deeper informational layer. Like a movie that appears three-dimensional on a flat screen. And this isn't science fiction, right? Black hole research has actually provided evidence for this. Scientists discovered that the surface area of a black hole's event horizon can encode all the information about everything that fell into it. That discovery fundamentally changed theoretical physics. So what does this mean practically? If the universe is holographic, then you, as an individual, are not separate from the whole. You are a fragment that contains the pattern of the entire thing. Your consciousness isn't a small, isolated signal in a vast, indifferent universe. It's a node in a unified field, a local instance of something much larger. Ancient traditions arrived at this same conclusion through completely different roads, which I find remarkable. The Hindu concept of Indra's net describes a cosmic web where every jewel reflects every other jewel infinitely. Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below, suggests that the patterns of the universe replicate at every scale. Buddhist teaching on interconnectedness. Even the 17th century philosopher Leibniz, with his idea of monads, tiny indivisible units, each containing the blueprint of the entire cosmos. So you've got quantum physicists, ancient Vedic scholars, Buddhist monks, and a German philosopher all independently arriving at the same basic architecture of reality. And then, a US Army lieutenant colonel writing a classified report for the CIA lands in the same place. That convergence is hard to dismiss. But here's where the Gateway document makes its most radical claim. It argues that consciousness doesn't just observe this holographic reality, it participates in shaping it. Your thoughts are not private. They are forms of energy that ripple through the holographic field and influence what emerges from it. The double-slit experiment gives us a physical foothold for this idea. When particles are not observed, they behave like waves, passing through both slits simultaneously, creating an interference pattern. The moment an observer measures which slit they pass through, the wave function collapses. The particle becomes definite. The act of conscious observation changed the physical outcome of the experiment, not as a metaphor, as a measured, reproducible physical result. Now imagine scaling that principle. If conscious observation influences the behavior of particles at the quantum level, what does that say about the relationship between consciousness and the larger fabric of reality we're all embedded in. The gateway process says it means this: you are not watching the movie of your life from a seat in the audience. You are co-authoring it. Every focused thought, every held intention, every state of coherence your brain achieves sends a ripple through the holographic field and influences what crystallizes into your experience. That's not a spiritual metaphor. According to this document, according to the physics it draws on, that's a description of mechanism. And once you understand the mechanism, the natural next question is, how do you actually work with it? So now let's talk about what I think is the most personally confronting part of the whole gateway framework, and that's the document's claim about time and space. The report states it directly. Time and space are constructs of the information processing activity of consciousness. Not poetic language, a functional claim. Let me sit with that for a second and actually unpack what it means. Time, as most of us experience it, feels like a river, moving in one direction, always forward, dragging us along with it. Space feels fixed and objective. Distances are real, locations are permanent, your body is here, and everything else is somewhere else. That's the frame most of us operate from. But what if that frame is a tool the mind creates, rather than a feature of reality itself? Einstein already broke the fixed model of time in a way that's been experimentally confirmed. Time dilation is real. Atomic clocks placed on fast-moving aircraft tick more slowly than identical clocks left stationary on Earth. Time literally moves at different rates depending on velocity and gravitational field. So even in mainstream physics, time is not an absolute uniform backdrop. It is observer-dependent and flexible. The Gateway document goes further. It argues that time and space are perceptual constructs, patterns the mind imposes on raw experience to create coherent navigation. Strip away memory, and time dissolves. Remove all sensory input, and spatial orientation vanishes. The boundaries aren't out there in the universe, they're generated in here, by the mind. Participants in the Gateway experiments described experiences that seemed to confirm this. Some reported reliving past events with a vividness that felt indistinguishable from present moment reality, not as a memory, but as an experience. Others described accurate perception of events at remote locations or future time frames. The document doesn't treat these as anomalies. It treats them as evidence that trained consciousness can step outside the constructed frame of linear time. Now I want to share something personal here. A few years ago, I started doing a specific kind of intentional visualization practice. Not complicated, not long, just 30 seconds of sitting with a very clear mental picture of something I wanted to bring into my life. And what I noticed, slowly, then all at once, was that it wasn't just changing what I thought about, it was changing what I noticed, what I reached for, what felt available to me. The internal state shifted first, and then, genuinely, the external circumstances started moving. I know how that sounds, but I also know what I experienced, and I'm not going to talk myself out of it just because it doesn't fit a materialist frame. Here's the practical application the Gateway process points toward. If time is a construct of consciousness, then you are not as trapped in it as you feel. The sense of not enough time, the feeling of being permanently defined by past events, the anxiety about a future that hasn't materialized yet, those are orientations of consciousness, not fixed facts, and you can shift them. Try this. Close your eyes, take a breath, and bring to mind a specific memory, something that carries genuine joy. Don't analyze it, just let yourself be in it. The sights, the sounds, the feeling in your body. Notice how real it becomes. For a moment, your nervous system doesn't distinguish between that memory and the present, because from the mind's perspective, there is no rigid wall between then and now. That's not imagination. That's demonstration of how permeable the construct of time actually is. Now run that process forward. Take a goal, something specific, something you actually want, and place yourself inside it, as though it's already real. Not hoping it will happen, experiencing it as happening. According to the Gateway framework, and frankly, according to neuroscience research on visualization and neural pathway formation, this is not wishful thinking. This is you providing your brain with a coherence signal, a frequency to lock onto and begin organizing your behavior and perception around. The limiting beliefs are the interference pattern, the internal narratives of, I can't. I'm not the kind of person who. Things don't work out for me. These are constructs too, just like time and space. And just like time and space, they are not immovable facts of the universe. They are habits of consciousness, which means they can be changed. The gateway process, when you really read it, isn't the government manual for psychic espionage. Although, I'll be honest, the remote viewing stuff alone could fill 3 more videos and I would happily make them. At its core, it's a document arguing that consciousness is not a byproduct of the physical world, it's a participant in creating it. That your mind is not a passive screen where reality plays out. It's an active instrument that interacts with the fabric of what's real. That's the actual secret in that classified document. Not that the CIA found a way to spy across dimensions, though they apparently tried, but that the architecture of reality places enormous creative power in the hands of any individual willing to learn how their own consciousness actually works. You are not a spectator. You never were. The document just makes it official. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.